But you can't make these moves in older buildings. You can only do it in new construction. That's where I differentiate myself.
All right, guys, I'm Alexio Barbara. Today, I'm going to be introducing Rammy at his project here in North Park. And Rammy is a developer here in San Diego. He is creating amazing living spaces in the San Diego urban core neighborhood. They're all hyper modern. And we're going to learn from him what he's doing with this project today. Rammy, how you doing?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You dressed for the occasion?
I sure did. I just want to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, you know?
The way the schedule worked, this obviously was supposed to be done by now, but in real estate, everything's over budget and over schedule, so get used to it. So you
par for the course.
Dressed appropriately according to the budget, but this is where we're at today. So
I'm actually sleeping underneath the car here just to make ends meet. So anyway, tell us about this project. It's called Nok Nok.
Yeah, the project's called Nok Nok, and I have this philosophy that when designing space, that when someone comes to a project where they're going to live, that they feel like home when they step through the front door or when they just step foot on the property. So a lot of people, you go to your apartment building, it's a horseshoe or U-shape or double loaded corridor, like walking down Motel 6, and at night, you know, there's shadows from the lights and you think someone creepy's behind you.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel very inviting, and then you get through your front door and you say, I'm home. So I've always loved the experience going to resorts and hotels and the type of places where once you step on the grounds there in hotels and resorts, they call them grounds. They don't call them the building or the property. That you say, you take a deep breath and you relax.
You feel like you're going into a new environment, a new place.
It's your safe space.
Right.
So I want the safe space to start as people step onto the property, as you know, tenants or residents step onto the property to their home.
Okay.
And the reason for Nok Nok is Nok Nok reminds you of your home. And it's playful. North Park is a very diverse community. You know, people are really pushing design. There's the Lafayette 3 blocks away that consortium bought that did an amazing job.
Like a $25 million remodel.
It was supposed to be a $24 million renovation. I think it pushed to 31, but who's counting? So I don't feel so bad.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of new projects in the area, and a lot of those developers, they've grown out of a community of architect developers from Woodbury Architecture School under Ted Smith, who has really promoted diversity and design-driven projects, not just based off numbers, but based off design. So that's what we focused on here. That's what I focused on here. Could have been a larger project, could have been bigger, could have been taller, and I really wanted to focus on design over density. I think by creating a safe place and a place that people can call home, that they're going to stay here longer, and they're going to tell their friends to live here. And when there's a vacant unit, I distribute an email to the tenants, and they ask a friend to move in, and it creates a community. Right. Because there's a lot of fear in this product type that I'm building, micro units, that it's a studio like they were traditionally. Traditionally studios weren't sought after from apartment buyers. You could attest to that, right?
Right.
In the past, people
are nervous because there's a lot of turnover and higher vacancy rates.
We have to put our fair housing law hat. But what other kind of tenant profile would you put in studios in the past?
Well, it's probably someone transitioning between. It's kind of a stepping stone to get into a larger, more permanent space.
And that's it. So wanted to shift the paradigm. I really think there's, Tim Ferriss talks about scratching your own itch when getting involved in business. And I've lived in a studio that was 350 square feet in Gaslamp with no parking. And do I live in that space today? No, but it's a space that I've lived in the past. And I said other people would like to live in this space and live in a better location, not have to drive, where they want to experience more and carry less. So in the same 325 square feet that you would have in a normal studio, say across the street at a Huffman 8-pack or 12-pack, you'd have 8-foot ceilings, popcorn ceilings. You'd hear conversations through the walls with your neighbors. You wouldn't have a washer dryer. You wouldn't have air conditioning. Small little window in the corner, and your bed's in the middle of the living room.
Right.
And it's kind of embarrassing bringing friends over because they're sitting on the edge of your bed. It really is a transitional space. Right. It's, hey, let me have some independence before I find something nicer. Right. We're here all the units are set up so that there's a bed cove, so your bed is out of the way. You could actually entertain a few friends. 10-foot ceilings, floor to ceiling glass, concrete floors, washer and dryer, kitchen, full bathroom, closet, all of the things that you would expect out of a broadstone or a higher end apartment type of unit, you're getting here. It's just more efficient space.
Right.
And it's frankly 30 to 40% off. So these studios on average will rent for around $2,000. If you go 2 blocks away to Broadstone on Texas and El Cajon Boulevard in North Park,
latest big project.
they have a swimming pool, they have elevators, they have the rooftop amenity room,
Right.
and they're $2,600.
Right.
These are $2,000 or $2,600 and up.
Right. And still the same location, still walkable to everything, the Lafayette.
Yeah.
And it has all of the comforts that you probably see there without the amenities.
And then in addition, Parkline was just completed by a good friend of mine, Andrew Malik, which is a project right over here. They have elevators, they have a rooftop deck, they don't have the gym, they don't have the doorman, all the things that Broadstone has. So it's kind of a stripped down version of an amenitized building, because it does have the elevators and the rooftop, but their studios, they're a little larger than here, and those start at $2,450. Okay. So I'm $400 to $600 under market of new construction for someone that says, you know what, I want to live in the community. I don't want to have to commute from East County, sit in traffic every day. I want to be in close proximity to employers, whether they're working at the hospitals just in Hillcrest, UCSD, or Scripps, whether they're working in Mission Valley, that's just down Texas Street, or downtown, that's just a stroll down 163.
And all of these are within like 10-15 minute drive from here.
10 to 15 minute drive, or bus or cycling.
Right.
So there's several options they have, and that's really my sweet spot. Is I'm not looking for a renter by choice. I feel a lot of the high-end apartments that are studios at $3,000 or 2 bedrooms at $4,500, that until interest rates really picked up recently, a lot of those renters have the option of buying. They're just choosing to rent at this time.
Right, and we're feeling that firsthand as the brokers.
So I want a renter by necessity, because I know they're either going to rent from me or they're going to rent from someone else, but that they're not going to move out because they found something to buy. They're going to be a renter until they save enough, or until they make a higher income, or kind of step up the ladder with whatever their work is. So that's really what I'm targeting. I want to be the lowest cost unit for a nice construction product against all the other new construction.
The modern feel with the comforts that people look for. Tenants are
the sound quality, is the washers and dryers, the high ceilings, without all the frills of the amenities.
Right.
Like, I had a friend that lived in New York, and he's like, you won't believe it, my building has a golf simulator. And I'm like, wow, I'd have used a golf simulator once. I've been to one of those bars with the golf simulator. 6 months down the road, and we talk again. I'm like, hey, how many times you use that golf simulator? He's like, I've never used it.
Maybe there's something to be said about that for getting people in the door, at the higher rent. But
yeah,
let's check out the things that some of the things that you put in here to attract these tenants.
Sure. So I have this philosophy, and it's Tony Hsieh from, the late Tony Hsieh from Zappos. Okay. He was the CEO of Zappos, and he has a quote that struck me, and it's not every decision you make has a financial IRR.
Okay.
So, and then he says, what's the IRR of giving your mom a hug? So I take a little different philosophy when it comes to projects and design. A lot of people look at their pro forma and they say, how can we make the numbers work? And then let's align a project that fits the pro forma. Right. And I do the opposite. I say, what should be here? How do we orient the building to capture the views and the outdoor space that tenants will enjoy? And then do the numbers work? And can we meet somewhere in the middle?
Okay.
Part of that is creating and activating the street front, which we're doing here. You would think mid-block off El Cajon Boulevard, it would just be simply all residential. But there are issues with vagrants, as you're aware, with your clients. And there's the normal status quo of, I've seen everything in North Park and around the urban areas. from flashing lights to having sprinkler pipes that spray at night to be able to keep, you know, any vagrants away at night, to
Classical music.
out as classical music speakers.
Yeah, I've seen that now.
So, you know, there's learning lessons from Jane Jacobs, who's an urban planner from New York, not by education, but just by School of Hard Knocks. And there's a book, The Life and Death of Great American Cities. And in the book, she identifies that the safest street is a street with eyes on it, because people protect people. Security cameras don't protect people. They just document what happened. That it's a lot safer to walk down a street at 2 o'clock in the morning with bars on it, even with drunk people, because people are looking out for people, than to be the only one walking down a block with no one else on it that's well lit with security cameras. Yeah, you've been down that block looking over your shoulder in a city that
it's a little different than it is for females, but I mean, totally. That's something that goes through everybody's head. If it goes through our head, it definitely goes through theirs.
So I do some, you know, code kung fu, where I do, you know, really work in interpreting the city, and as well as the state's codes for zoning. And I was able to make a flower shop work here. So there's going to be these glass doors that slide open.
Right through here?
Right through here, right through this beam, and then across the front. So this entire corner unit becomes a flower shop. And this is an indoor-outdoor space from the flower shop, but this is also the entrance for the residents to get into the building. Okay. So every day the residents walk through, and instead of me spending a ton of money on a fancy lobby that's enclosed with air conditioning and heat and a security guard and fancy furniture and carpet that gets beat up and furniture nobody sits on or uses, I just give a huge discount to a flower shop. It's not a profit center. But now in my lobby every day, I have fresh flowers, and then I have someone making the flowers. So there's an artist doing something. Right. And then I'm going to, as part of their lease, I'm negotiating right now, they're going to exchange a bouquet of flowers for a discount on their rent to every tenant that lives here every month.
That's very unique. I've never heard of anybody doing that. But I can't wait to see how maybe financial IRR, but it's going to translate to that in the culture that it provides the tenants here.
That's absolutely it. So Jane Jacobs also said that the highest level of trust in a community and a mixed-use building is having the shopkeeper at the storefront being able to hand them your keys to your unit and say, "My friend's coming this weekend. Can you pass off my keys?" So that's the culture I want to create, is people know each other. Also, this micro retail concept of taking a small, you know, entrepreneur coming out of their garage to give them brick and mortar space. A lot of the newer apps, DoorDash and the like, they won't accept these flower deliveries from a residential address or location. But if they have a commercial address, now you could start selling through DoorDash and other opportunities, or to meet with clients for events instead of at a coffee shop. So it's giving that entrepreneur a step up into a retail space that, you know, retail spaces, you typically have to sign a lease for 5 years. You have to sign your personal guarantee on it. And if you don't pay, you're going bankrupt. And here here's the keys. It's built out, you know, throw in some fridges for the flowers. And if it works for you, great. And if not, give me the keys back and I'll give them to another entrepreneur. Yeah. Or if you grow out of the space, throw me the keys back and I'll give the opportunity for another entrepreneur to grow as well. Right. So this is, I know we spent a little time on this, but this is really big in programming of what I feel is not just, it's, you know, not everyone's going to agree with the density of this project in this community, with the design of the project, with how many people are living here, with the, you know, with no parking. Right. But I don't know anybody that doesn't like a flower shop. Oh yeah. So I did the same thing in Golden Hill. I put a restaurant on the corner with a huge deck that, you know, neighbors can come sit with their dog, have coffee, have a meal. And it's a human, scalable experience, you know, compared to a 5-story building. So it's a little buffer of engagement for the community.
And something that makes your property unique too.
Absolutely.
And marketable for that very reason.
Whether it's marketable or not, we'll see.
I'll certainly be rooting for you on that front. I'll come buy some flowers too, support this flower shop.
Yeah. So there's no enclosed space for corridors. And the reason why is we live in San Diego and it's indoor-outdoor living. So why close people up into corridors? In addition to operating costs, I don't want someone with a vacuum and someone moves and bangs up the drywall. All the hallways are exterior, everything's stucco. The only enclosed common space is this Amazon locker room and package room because it's so important on new buildings. Right. I'm sure you've experienced with clients that you have. What happens? What do their tenants complain about?
Oh, well, they can't get the package, doesn't get delivered, FedEx can't arrive. I mean, the gate, they couldn't get the gate code. They couldn't get up 5 stories. You know, now they have one spot that's going to be secured for them to have all of their valuables delivered. You don't want stuff getting pulled off the street by vagrants.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I don't know how many. Yeah, so we're working through stucco, and the standard stucco process is a 4-step process. It's paper and lath, which is the first step, and then there's a scratch coat, a brown coat, and then the finished color coat. But I wanted really to push design and a softer feel on this building. You know, a lot of builders, they're using black and white and gray, and that just seems to be what's popular. But I have a lot of exposed heavy timber.
This orange that you've got on here. This is, I imagine, the color that you're going with?
Correct. So it dries out and has a little more pink to it. It goes on darker, but there's a lot of exposed timber that you see like here and above me. Yeah. So it creates a natural feel. And then all of what you're standing on now will actually be wood decking. Okay. So as you walk to the units, it feels like you're walking through your backyard with landscaping to the units, not concrete or anything. Calmer. It doesn't feel cold. So I wanted the color to reflect that, and also the finish. So if you just have what's considered a sand finish, it's a lot less expensive. The sand finish is a solid color. But what this Santa Barbara smooth finish will be, the same Santa Barbara you see on custom homes in La Jolla and Palm Springs, really, and it pays homage to the Southern California type of Irving Gill type of contemporary type of finish, and just the craftsmanship. Is it's smooth to the touch, but it's actually troweled, so you see color variation through it once it dries. So that as the sun comes down and the weather comes down, it starts to patina and it starts to feel natural. Right. The idea is when the building's done and you see the natural wood and you see Santa Barbara finish, you go, when was that building built? Like, was it a year ago or was it 10 years ago or was it 20 years ago? I'm trying to steer away from building spaceships, which I think a lot of buildings today are going to look like in 10 or 20 years. With their colors and finishes.
Yours is definitely going to look like a designer. Designer ship, if anything. But,
a designer ship?
And you know what? I think the reason I say that is because if you look around at this property, you notice like these angles. And I remember a few years ago when we met at Architects Local downtown, it was still in the design phases. We were trying to figure out ways to make all the angles feng shui together. And I mean, I think just from looking at the building on the outside, it really has come together.
The inspiration was actually a mountain.
Really?
Because we sloped the building in the back because there's these amazing views that we'll experience in a few minutes overlooking the North Park Valley. And when we started, we actually I rented a boom lift. So you operate drones and like having fun with them. I don't think you get the experience of, you don't get the experience of a view from a drone. So you physically, so I rented a boom lift and paid for it, and people thought I was crazy to go to 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet, and say, what's the experience going to be looking east, seeing the sunrise, looking west over the valley, and let's get out of here.
Other developers is that you treat the development process as really a form of art, thinking about each thing with so much detail.
So what I recognize through doing that is the views is oriented the views and going east. Once you get high enough to see the mountains and the sunrise, that's when you start having outdoor spaces to experience it. And then off the east side, there's amazing views. So everybody gets an outdoor space. This isn't a little 3x3 outdoor space where you step out and say hi to your neighbor. What I call smoker's balcony or surfboard storage. These are spaces that you could actually use. Put a dining table experience, and they're private spaces where you could walk out in the morning in your pajamas and drink a cup of coffee. Let's head back there. There's also a unique view at this height. The horizon that you don't experience and you wouldn't expect is North Park, quintessential Southern California, is a ton of palm trees. And the palm trees sit at the eye line of some of the views of the units in the back. So as you look out, you're eye level with the palm trees, which you never experience from the ground, which is a nice experience.
Yeah, that's all those little things you wouldn't realize unless you were up there with a boom truck.
I was the one operating it too, so it was a little sketch. I'm surprised my architect, Matt Stowe with Architects Local, he gave me the he didn't ask are we gonna be okay? He just gave me the nod, we're good, right?
Yeah. You're not gonna tip over up there, are you? How much was it to rent a boom truck?
So for them to drop it off, we go up 10 feet, spend 1 hour on it, and pick it up. It was $800. Wow. People are like, $800 just to go up there? Couldn't you have sent a drone?
R&D.
But it's still not the experience, and we designed the building around the views. The project is no parking.
Okay.
So the city of San Diego in 2019 passed municipal code that allows for no parking if you're in a transit priority area. That was at the time.
Okay.
Which is a half mile to major transit, which includes a rail stop or 2 intersecting bus lines at peak hours that have that stop at 15-minute intervals.
Okay.
So it's really, can you walk a half a mile to transit and use it and get somewhere?
Right.
And then since then, it's been updated to a little different measurement, but a mile now for what's considered
Making essentially everything in the TPA.
a sustainable development area is up to a mile. And what's interesting is the state adopted a version of San Diego's code just last year. So San Diego's been first on a lot of this policy. So I've worked on a bunch of it with the crew from Urban Land Institute. I grew up in San Diego in the South Bay. I'm invested here, and it's, I don't feel we have competition in San Diego, that I'm competitors with other developers, and that's the sense of the community in San Diego, is that once you buy the property, you're no longer competition. How do you help your friends build the best project to create the best neighborhoods? Yeah, without this legislation, none of these infill projects would be possible.
Right.
So what we had in the past, what I call blockbuster projects, where you buy an entire square block, you build a monstrosity of a building, it sucks out community character. They have a CVS on the ground floor because they want the AAA credit tenant for the banks. They kick out all the small mom and pop type of storefronts, and it just sucks the soul out of a community. But these small scale infill projects, this was one house that was here, a 7,000 square foot lot. There's still a couple homes on the end of the block, a fourplex next to me, and it's just fine-grained development that I call urban acupuncture. And it just becomes part of the community and lets more people live here and experience the community. So it's a lot different type of product type. And the legislation since really 2016, affordable housing density bonus, if you set aside a certain percentage of your units to affordable, so this does have affordability in the building that's deed restricted. Right. No subsidy, no money's given to me, but I provide that and I get some bonuses to build higher, to build wider, to build a few more units. And then in return, San Diego gets a few affordable units that are deed restricted. So it's a good balance without any government financial subsidy or tax dollars. And those are called incentive-based programs. Alongside that, the no parking really helps, get these projects out of the ground, because with parking requirements that were here previously, you would have to park 1 parking space per bedroom. So even if you can build, there's 28 units on this site, even if you can build 28 units and they were all studios or 1 bedrooms, you couldn't park 28 parking spaces. It just physically doesn't work.
Unless you went 3 stories subterranean.
Not even that. If you ramp down because of the ramping requirements and the drive aisles or driveways to continue to circulate, you wouldn't create any more parking at each level, because you're just continuing. It'd be a spiral from, I like to say, you'd have a spiral from here to China and create no more parking. So the parking requirement really tied up these sites from being developed. In a majority of the sites in San Diego at transit priority areas or sustainable development areas, they happen to be 5,000 to 10,000 square feet. And that's the sweet spot. It's not the blockbuster developments. It's hard to assemble them. And if you drive through North Park today, you see one of these going up every 2 blocks.
Yeah.
3 blocks.
So we looked at one on the corner over there. There's one on the corner of Park and El Cajon.
And it's a result of the policy and the city really having engaging with the development community and having a culture of embracing change. And the city's done a great job of that and acknowledged that this is going to be one of the future paths of creating housing along transit that we need.
Okay.
And now it's happening. Some more of my economic design moves. Instead of having a traditional bond, it's called bond beam stacked blocks, where you would stack halfway over the next one, really a brick pattern.
Interesting. Yeah, this is different.
It's considered a stacked block.
Okay.
And then it's a deep rake. So instead of just a round pointed mortar, it's a deep rake. So you see more of the shadow line. And instead of just using gray on gray, I pay a little more and I get a black mortar. And they rake it deep. So it gives us really, kind of mid-century contemporary look. But this is the standard block from RCP or wherever you can get it from, any of the shops. And then the only special thing is how they apply it and the color of the mortar.
They don't need to require more rebar or something?
There's nothing else required, yeah.
Okay.
What's interesting about masonry walls is everybody thinks this is weaker, but these are on the inside, these are open to each other, and the strength of the wall isn't actually the block, it's the concrete. Yeah, the concrete grout and the rebar that's in between them that creates the strength.
Very cool. It definitely it has a modern feel and design because you have those straight lines that go all the way up and all the way across.
So we're walking up just the more emergency set of stairs, the second set of stairs.
Where's the first set of stairs?
The first set of stairs we're going to be working on shortly. They're not done yet. Yeah, let's go up one more.
So we're walking up one of the angles right here.
Yeah, I don't know if I would let my architect. This is all cantilevered and floating right now.
Right.
There's nothing supporting this. It's just beams hanging out. And I probably wouldn't give this to my architect again as a design move, but.
What is it, stucco?
Pink, orange, Santa Barbara stucco. You could see, the texture and how it feels.
It also has kind of like this reflective, maybe it's because it's still wet, but it looks like it has shadows within it. Kind of give it a little bit more character.
Yeah, so this is where the stairs are going to go, where I'm standing for the main circulation of the building. Okay. And then above you is all exposed beams. And then there's plywood up there now, but it's all going to be wood decking. So it feels like you're outside walking through your landscaped area. And there's a few holes that are punched through. So landscape's going to grow through planters and grow down. So you're going to have a landscape deck experience. And this opening, that opening stays open. Okay. And you're going to be able to see to the north. And as you're walking up through, you're going to see to the south. You have a breeze, you're outdoor, and you're not walking up that staircase that's just switching back and switching back.
It's an experience getting to your unit.
Yeah, it's one of them. It's a move from, there's a lot of moves that people use. I don't want to say copy, but it's best practices. Mike Burnett, who has a few projects here in North Park, he doesn't build, he recently has, but he's built a lot of projects with no elevators to save cost. It's not just the cost on the elevator, the pit, the cost of installing the elevator itself, but you save money in operation. Every time someone hits a button, it's 25 cents that the owner's paying for in cost. But every floor that the elevator serves is required to be ADA adaptable. Meaning there's requirements for wider hallways and bigger bathrooms. So if I had elevators serving the second to fourth floor in this building, these 325 square foot studios would turn into 425 square foot studios. Instead of $2,000 a month, it'd be $2,400 a month. And most likely someone who needed an adaptable unit would never live here and never need that experience because there's adaptable units on the entire first floor that we have options if someone needs those, which is nicer for someone to not have to take an elevator to going on the ground floor and roll right up. Exactly. Just the move of not having the elevators isn't I'm cheap. It's because if I want to deliver a product that's market rate affordable without government subsidy, I have to pull out some of those amenities, and that specific amenity allows me to build more efficient. All right, we'll pop in a studio back here, and then we'll go upstairs to a penthouse. But I'm actually seeing this for the first time, these corridors. They're pretty badass.
I think it looks awesome.
So these are little niches that we created darker, just so you have an experience where it's like, this is my doorway. If someone wants to put a little plant here to create their own experience for their unit, they can on top of the decking. We'll have some addressing. So same thing at this end of the corridor. These corridors are completely outdoors. So you're enclosed on 3 sides, so you're protected from the elements. But as you look through, this is completely open. So it brings in natural daylight. There'll be railing here. You get a breeze coming through here. And as you step out of your unit, you look out, you get a peekaboo view of downtown, and you start to experience outdoor space. And it just, to me, it's a healthier environment.
Right.
We'll pick another unit. So we have cabinets being installed in here, but this is the typical studio. It's 325 square feet. I've used this floor plan on other projects. So what's unique about these studios is there's a lot of functionality. So any hallway space doubles as functional space. So there's a full bathroom, there's a rod and a closet on that side. And then just over here is a washer and dryer. You have your fridge, 24-inch dishwasher. There's a cooktop, so you don't get the oven, but you get a 2-burner cooktop, a microwave that exhausts, some shelving, little design move. And this countertop ends up coming all the way to the end, and you have a desk to be able to put a chair under.
Awesome.
So one of the unique things that, one thing that a design move is Hector Perez, who's an architect developer here in San Diego and also a teacher at Woodbury Architecture School. Okay. He taught me a big lesson, and that's not supporting transformer furniture. So transformer furniture is like Murphy beds and things that slide out, and I'm sure you've seen all the YouTube videos where it's like all these tricky cabinetry, and this is a bed, but it turns into a table, and anything that moves, a tenant will break.
Right. Yeah, you're gonna get called.
So
25 cents every time you push
the last thing I want is a tenant wanting to sleep at night and their Murphy bed isn't working, and they're calling at 10 o'clock at night going, I can't sleep. What are you gonna do?
I need a hotel room.
I need a hotel room. So that's why I created this bed cove over here. So that's where you put your bed. A queen bed fits perfect in there. Okay. So there's no room on the sides. You jump, just on the end. But it's a space to keep your bed out of the way. If you wanted to, you could put a curtain there. And now your bed's out of the way of your living space. You have a couch against that wall. A countertop comes across. You have a TV on this wall with a desk underneath. And it also cuts down on furniture. Okay. So now you don't need to bring in your own desk. You have a built-in desk. All you need is a coffee table, a couch, a bed, and a table outside. So this is really where you're going to live and spend your time entertaining. And this is your dining space. So it's 325 square feet inside, but 100 square feet outside. So you almost get as much as the other buildings of functional space, but you get it in a private outdoor area looking over North Park, the sunset to the west. I walked through with Matt Stowe, my architect, and we didn't start, when we took the boom up, most people start and they say, what is the front of my building gonna look like? I wanna make it sexy. Yeah. What's it gonna look like? We started with the back. And we said, there's apartment buildings here that probably won't be demoed for a long time. So these are the views that are going to be preserved, and these are the best views. How do we take advantage of the most outdoor patio space that people can experience? And how do we give them the most daylight and privacy? So this is the design, which is, call it the ski slope, stingers. So all of these are individual units, except for the penthouses get 2 decks. And they all angle up and they're all private. Which is nice. So you come out here, you can have your coffee in the morning with your pajamas like I described. And it's
I'd say that's waist level for most people.
And most of North Park, people think it's pretty flat. And we're sitting at a high point below. We hit below the valley up here on Hamilton Street. So you get a view over the valley. You're at the tree line of the palm trees, which is this really unique, like second landscaping kind of canopy, which is quintessential California I was describing. And literally everybody that comes here, they just go like, the views off those back units, the views off those back units, the outdoor experience. I never thought you'd have a view over the valley at the canopies of the palm trees from that location. And most people, when they build buildings, I promise you, they'll go like, oh my gosh, we just framed the 4th floor, we could see the bay, but they had no idea they were going to get that view.
They didn't rent a boom.
They didn't rent that. They didn't. Yeah, they beat me up for $800 for a boom. But if you're going to have that view, then why don't you maximize it? And why don't you create windows or floor-to-ceiling glass or an outdoor space to
focus
create
on having this on the back of the building versus the front,
right?
So that it's street. You know, where it makes the most sense. Here, I mean, we actually see. You see the top of Balboa Park over here. You can see, you know, some of the elements of University Heights that make it special.
You could actually see out to some views of USD. Yeah, and there's some cost savings. So what you'll notice in here is, and you deal with a lot of apartments and operations and owners that manage, and what you'll experience over time is like the guys that are successful, the apartment owners, like they keep things really simple. And so here, from experience on other buildings, I have the least amount of SKUs as possible. So all the appliances are this. What a lot of designers will do and what they'll push for is they'll push for 18-inch dishwashers because it's space saving. It's like, I want to wash all my dishes at once. And what you don't realize that I recognize the last projects I built, I had 18-inch dishwashers, and the 18-inch dishwashers were 25% more expensive than a regular 24-inch dishwasher.
All the smaller
it's more expensive, and they're harder to get, and they're special order.
A laptop costs more than a big computer.
So literally, I just said, everybody gets a 24-inch dishwasher. Whether you have a studio, whether you have a big penthouse unit, it's the same. Yeah. So it's less SKUs, which is helpful. You know, to save on costs and functionality and just bring the rent down. The closets in the studios are open. There's no closet doors.
Right.
There's no door for the laundry. You just walk by the hall and you see it, but it's not a view from your living area. So really within that studio, there's your front door and a door to the bathroom, but you don't have the doors to the closet. You don't have the doors to the laundry. You don't have all those other costs and functionality and operations. In addition, you know, I spend the design dollars on the structure itself. What I don't do is I don't spend it on frills inside the unit. So you're not going to see super fancy, you know, high-end countertops with tile backsplashes, because a lot of those finishes get dated. And I want to differentiate my new construction from the 1970s apartments, a lot of which you deal with, and everybody could put in stainless steel appliances. Everybody can, well, no, not just timeless, but everybody could buy stainless steel appliances. Everybody can do luxury vinyl plank flooring. So what I do is I say, what are the design elements I could do in new construction that you can't in an old building? So I can have 10-foot ceilings. I could have floor-to-ceiling glass. You can't. You can't lift your ceiling in an old building. You can't open walls in an old building because you have shear and structural elements. A lot of older buildings don't have air conditioning. I have air conditioning and I have Nest thermostats, which is what any of us want because it's just functional and easy. Washers and dryer in the units are very difficult to vent and tie into plumbing, so I have those. I have concrete floors, which gives more of an urban experience. They're clean, and you know, when I turn over a unit, the concrete floors, we mop and we turn it over to the next guy, and we're not replacing flooring. So the reason you can't do concrete floors is because this building is structurally engineered. There's extra framing that's beefier to support this. There's more weight, which you can't do this in an older building. So the floor-to-ceiling glass with the stacked doors, these are very difficult to do structurally in an older building with huge outdoor patio spaces. So when you come into a space like this, and then you go to an older building, it's completely night and day, and that's the differential. I want someone to experience what it is to have spatial qualities. My cabinets are white, my countertops are gray, my floors are gray. There's no special wallpaper, there's no special designer touches. I spend the money on tall ceilings, huge openings, lots of natural daylight, than spending the money on wallpaper and fancy tile and black backsplashes. Tenants I know, they want a badass space where they can live. They don't just want kitschy stuff that you see on HGTV. And those are the things you could do on older buildings, but you can't make these moves in older buildings. You could only do it in new construction. That's where I differentiate myself.
I'm telling Brandon here because I think he's going to be looking for a new apartment in this building. Let's check out the upstairs. So this is a loft unit. The upstairs ones?
The upstairs all have a loft. There's a mezzanine. So it's double height ceiling. And all these, what's that? This is one of the penthouses. So all of the penthouses have one big move for me as well in design is every time I have a penthouse, there's a powder bathroom downstairs. So it's really small, it's compact, it's easy to do. Your friends that you invite over to entertain, they're not walking in your bathroom, seeing your toothbrush out, you don't have to prep anything. It's a nice feature that you just don't see sometimes. You see that double door into the shared master bathroom. So you get your own master bath up here, closet. This is the bed area. There's an area for office downstairs. You can look down below. And then, why do you need 2 balconies? It's like, why not? Here's Floyd, superintendent that's building everything day by day.
This is my favorite unit because monster balconies and a good floor plan. You know?
The tours that I've had that I brought people by, they literally go, your units are really nice, the building's nice, but the balconies and the views, you would never anticipate being in North Park. Like, the selling point.
Rammy, tell me, what was the biggest challenge that you had to overcome on this project?
I really believe we're in not only in a housing crisis, but a humanitarian crisis. You know, with the amount of homeless, those people experiencing homelessness, and that we have a real undersupply of housing. San Diego Association of Governments, SANDAG, they're putting out reports that the population in San Diego, the population growth is going to be no growth. And my perspective is we're not showing population growth because people are leaving because we don't have housing for people. Right. But if we had the housing, then we would have the growth.
How can you have growth without housing?
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense.
That was a good point.
So proof's in the pudding, where if I have to choose between housing a car that takes 300 square feet for a parking space and backup area or housing a person, I'm going to house a person. And that's what I've elected to do is, you know, eliminate parking and house people in efficient units and at a middle income price point. Okay. That's 80 to 120% of area median income can afford without government subsidy.
I think you found the happy medium to achieve all of those things, but it takes a lot of creativity. All right, Rammy, so how do you feel about ADU versus ground up development?
I think it's a great opportunity for developers that are going from flipping to get their feet wet in new construction. And the way San Diego's not only adopted the state ADU laws, but they've enhanced it with the accessory dwelling bonus program that allows you to build more units if you deed restrict more units. I think it's phenomenal. Everyone in the state is looking at it and saying, what is San Diego doing and how are they putting this number of ADUs on the board? The permits that are being applied for ADUs is way higher than multifamily, not in the total number count, but the number of permits, so it's working. Right. And it's working for property owners, to, you know, people who want to enhance their income for retirement. Right. For forced appreciation on properties. It's infill. It's why I love it is it's that for solving a piece of solving the housing crisis. It's the cheapest construction you can build, and it's a covered land play. What a covered land play is, I buy a property with an existing use. It has some extra dirt, and the dirt doesn't cost me any more money because I get to keep the existing use of what's been built. The house stays. The backyard, it's somewhere past the pool along the alley that's not even used, and it costs nothing for the dirt because you already own it, and you get to build the cheapest type of construction, which is type 5B construction that any contractor and barrio bro in San Diego could typically build. And this type of construction is not that. This is very expensive, costs a lot of money. This project's taken 4 years from purchase to get to this point, through design, through permitting, through construction, and ADU is a quick turnaround to be able to create housing. So it's not where I'm at in my strategy.
But you think it's a good thing for San Diego?
I think it's a phenomenal thing for San Diego, and I think it's a great opportunity to cultivate developers locally. So a lot of what we experienced is the city came out with these enhancements to affordable housing bonus density and complete communities, which are these incentive-based programs. But what they did is you could either work on a house, or every lot was zoned for, or through the bonus programs, you're building a 20+ unit project to make to pay $1 million or now $2 million for a site. You got to build 30, 80 units. Right. So for someone to go from flipping a house to building 30 to 80 units,
not going to happen.
It might happen, but it's going to hurt.
And I can speak from experience, just having started with a project that was 5 garages, and I'm also like 3 years into that. That was an ADU deal, should have been done in a year and a half. But the barrio bros had problems, and the city and my design team ran into every issue of the book. but you know, it forces you to learn along the way. But that's what's so cool about the ADU development, is it creates people like me who were able to learn about the process and eventually even consider doing something large like this.
Yeah,
you start to understand how the city processes work.
And it's what I'm describing in project size is that if out of the gate you have to build 30 to 80 units, one, you're not going to take the leap. You don't. When you go to my first project, I built a custom single family home after doing a bunch of flips. And I said, hey, banks, can you give me money? And they're like, how many single family homes have you built? None, but I've done a ton of flips, and all my flips have added up to way more than building a house. And I have the experience, and I have a master's degree in real estate from USD. And they go, but you haven't built any houses. And I said, if the only way I get money is if I've built a house, then how do I ever build a house, because I'm never going to get money, right?
Right.
So it's the same issue with trying to leapfrog to 30 units or 50 units. Is one, banks and investors aren't going to back you unless you have dumb family money, to be frank. Or two, and then also what it does is it encourages out-of-town corporate developers to come into San Diego and to take advantage of the opportunities. And I think the ADU program, not just providing more housing that becomes affordable just based off the cost of construction and located in infill areas, you keep community character, but also it cultivates this new generation of developers that after those 5 ADUs, I'm sure you want to build something new or build a new apartment building.
Now I'm doing a detached one. It's
there you go.
Property by San Diego State, so doing detached 2-story rooftop over a junior, and you know, I wouldn't be willing to do that if I hadn't at least started with some garage conversions.
So that's what I love about it as well, is it creates a ladder, another rung in the ladder to cultivate local developers. It's attainable. You can do it with a refinance, a credit line, family or aunt or uncle or a friend. Doesn't cost a lot of dollars, and it's profitable. So,
what do you think about complete communities in San Diego? What is it, and how can people like you apply it to build more units?
Complete Communities was born out of a state law called the CASA Act that was actually driven by the current mayor when he was an assembly member. Todd Gloria is the author of it.
Really?
And this is probably 5 years ago, and it passed through the state assembly unanimously, which is hard to consider. But it was an opt-in program. So what it did is it allowed local jurisdictions like San Diego or Los Angeles or Lemon Grove or Encinitas, and they could opt into this program that the state set some kind of general rules for. And the idea is to promote housing around transit. What's happened over time is, before, the housing people were over here, we need more housing. Then you had the environmental people over here, said save our beaches, and
you had the neighborhood people saying, not in my
and then you had neighborhood people, not in my backyard, and then you had the transit people that said transit's great, let's promote transit. And then the state came out with the climate action plan and said we need to reduce our greenhouse gases, and we need to do it fast. So all of these worlds have collided, where the environmentalists say we love infill housing along transit because if people are riding alternative modes of transportation, it reduces emissions. And it reduces traffic, which is important, creates more walkable communities where people, rooftops over retail, so businesses are supported by people who live there, not by commuters. And then, so the environmentalists love it. The transportation guys loved it because more people are riding in transportation in dense areas in these urban corridors. And then the housing guys loved it because they said we're all in harmony. So that's what Complete Communities was pushing.
It's like the summit of all of these coming together.
Yeah, and all of them, it's the trifecta, and that's when you talk about housing and policy, you have to think of all those three: transportation, housing, and the environment. So what Complete Communities, born out of the COST Act, did is it said, well, let's focus on growth in these transit-oriented development areas, in transit priority areas, a half mile to transit along transit corridors where we already have jobs, we already have schools, we already have parks, we already have these resources that people can use, instead of suburban sprawl, leapfrog development out in greenfield, which isn't too green, out in nature, creates more traffic. And then what's unique about it, though, what it also said is, it said, let's not just focus on where it's at, but there's this really antiquated zoning that we've had over time that says you can build 1 unit per 1,000 square feet of dirt. So if a 5,000 square foot lot, you could build 5 units. Well, you could build more than 5 units on that 5,000 square foot lot, but let's say you just decide to build 2-bedroom 1,000 square foot units. You know, your livable square footage is going to be 5,000 square feet. So you have this envelope, this building that's a total of 5,000 square feet plus, you know, circulation, common areas, core, but we'll just call it the 5,000 square feet. So to the neighborhood and everything else, those 2 bedrooms are really expensive because 2 bedrooms are higher cost and they're nicer units.
Yeah.
So they said, well, should the government really be involved to tell you how many units should be in the box? If it's the same box, why not put more studios in there that may be more affordable or may fit the neighborhood or the demand better? And that's what it allows you to do. So instead of, it's what's called form-based zoning. So it tells you the floor area ratio or the amount of square feet you could build on the site, and then it's up to you as the developer in the marketplace to fit as well, to build 3-bedroom units for families, or to build studios, or student housing or senior housing. Whatever's allowed in the zone, you can fill it with. And the envelope is the same for the community. And it also requires a larger amount of deed restricted units for affordable housing. Right. So there's no government subsidy.
It's a give and take, there's a trade-off. It's trying to fill all of the boxes that the city's looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Housing,
and it's you know, it's a science project. So what's unique about the city of San Diego is there is a land use development code update, which just means they update the code every year and they say what's working and what's not. So they pushed a lot of these small studios with incentives, and now they're saying, hey, what we're missing in the urban areas and along in these transit, oriented developments in these corridors is we're missing family housing. Families need to be able to live in these areas and they're not. So now they're incentivizing family housing. So it's really unique that San Diego updates their code every year to be able to make tweaks on some of these things that may seem somewhat aggressive to start with.
It's in reaction to what is needed and what the evolving needs of the city are.
Absolutely, or those that are elected as well, what they feel the priorities are. Right. So I'm utilizing it on a project in Barrio Logan that I have into the city right now that should have permits by the end of the year, and that'll be 26 units, majority studios, efficient units, and it's
something similar to this.
But it's on a 5,000 square foot lot, so a little bit denser.
Smaller, yeah.
It's on the same block as Bread and Salt, which is mixed use space that has offices, art galleries, Mujeres Brewing, which is a brewery. It's 2 blocks from the Mercado, two blocks to Mercado Barrio, which is where you have a grocer, and 3 blocks from the trolley. So it's really what I consider it's housing at an attainable rate for the workforce of downtown that supports downtown.
Okay. Great. Well, we'll have to see how complete community shakes out in San Diego, but people like you are taking advantage, and hopefully, like you said, our biggest problem is we don't see population growth. It's probably stemming because we don't have enough housing to house more people. People like you are providing that kind of housing. So what are we standing on? What kind of lot is this? What kind of building is this? And how long did it take you to build this?
I bought this property in 2019. It's 7,000 square feet. At the time, there wasn't complete communities, so I used what's called a double density for micro units. So long as the units were 600 square feet or less and there was no unit 800 square feet or greater, I could double the base density. So here the base density was 12 units, so I doubled that to 24. And then I have some commercial units on the ground floor that will be used for Airbnb purposes, okay. Which are 4 units as well as the restaurant. So in total there's 28 units with the restaurant. The gross square footage of the building, including the core, the balconies, the walkways, the storage area, is just over 21,000 square feet.
Okay.
And then the rentable, livable area is about 16,000 square feet.
Okay, so what does that average out to for the studios and then for these larger lofts?
So the studios on average are 325 square feet.
Okay.
And then the average of the penthouses, which have mezzanines, which range from just a penthouse loft to a penthouse loft plus 1 bedroom, okay. Are about 650 square feet. So overall, my average square foot size is just over 425 square feet, which is very, very efficient. That doesn't include outdoor space like we're standing on here.
And
so
this actually is, for me, if I was living here, I'd treat this like my living room.
So this
feels like square
yeah,
footage
this
to the
unit
unit.
actually has it's 650 square feet, but it has 2 of these balconies that are 125 square feet. So you're really more in a livable space, indoor outdoor, of over 900 square feet, which is unique. So really wanted to enjoy the views off the back, natural daylight, and create some private balconies to give what people should have in San Diego is indoor outdoor space.
So let's talk about timelines. Okay. How long did it take you to start this project, and what was the process like?
So I bought the property in 2019. It took a year to get the plans together for the city. Then we were at the city for a year, which is actually pretty fast now. And some ADU projects take a year, and this is 28 units that got through the city in a year. And so that put me into 2021, like mid 2021, and then I had to shop for a construction loan. That took a couple months. So I started late third quarter of 2021, and now we're late third quarter of 2023. So the timeline of construction will just be over 2 years to finish the project. And all in all, the project from purchase, design, permitting, construction, and stabilization of tenants moving in will be about 4.5 years. So it's not for the faint of heart. No, it's not a quick flip. And
holding period too, during paying a construction loan, all these little things that you start to realize as a developer, time is one of the biggest costs.
All through COVID, all through rising interest rates, all through inflation. So it's a long-term horizon, and you really have to think long-term on these projects, unlike flips and some other project types.
Is it worth it?
I'm not good at multitasking. I'm good at having one project in construction and focusing on it. It was a successful model for Jonathan Siegel, who's an architect, as developer in San Diego, who's always really been in just about one project in construction at a time. So the model worked for him, and I'm just staying course, and grateful that I haven't chased every shiny object and opportunity, because it just helps me stay focused. And hopefully it shows to the finished product of my work.
Awesome. Well, definitely, we're not near the finished project yet, but it's getting closer.
Yeah.
And already, I think that we're all wide-eyed looking at your project.
Thank you.
Seeing something new that hasn't really been done yet in San Diego. Why don't we talk about any serious delays that you ran into during really the design phase or the construction phase? Is there one thing in particular that caught you off guard and delayed your project quite a bit?
Everything. I started a new out of grad school at USD in 2009, the MSRE program. There were no jobs because we were in the middle of the recession. So I started flipping houses and climbed the real estate ladder, and then finished a new construction house, custom home, in 2016. And since then, just progressively, there's just more and more regulation and rules along the way. And I think that's what makes things take the longest, is there's a disconnect between what your architect thinks is code, what the city reviewer thinks is code,
which may have shifted in the last month or two before they reviewed it,
or you get new reviewers because the city has a lot of turnover of staff, especially during COVID. And then you have a third round, which isn't just what your architect who's stamping and signing the plans that takes full liability. It's your architect, then it's the city reviewer, and then once you get out in the field, the building inspectors have their interpretation of the code, and they don't agree with your architect, and they don't even agree sometimes with the city reviewers who approved your plans. So that's one of the challenges. Is we had a fire suppression, which is fire sprinkler inspector, and they came out and they said, we think you should have a couple more sprinkler heads in this area. And we showed the plans from our designer and the city sign off, and they said, we don't care. We need to make sure it's safe. And I completely understand. It's, health, safety, fire, they're big deals.
Right. I wish it would have happened during the city review.
And we couldn't close the building up for 2 months because we had to update our plans and do a construction change with the city. So just a lot of these little nuances of trying to get in line for SDG&E, getting right-of-way work done, which is work outside of our property. Anytime you build a project that's a certain size, the city requires off-site improvements. So I have to replace some sidewalk panels for the city. I have to re-slurry like an entire portion of the street. Instead of just giving the city my portion of alley behind my property, I also am extending the alley all the way to Mead Street in front of the neighbor's property.
Oh, so they're getting you to pay for some of their upgrades.
Yeah, the city can require whatever my on-site construction costs are, they can require 10% of my budget be applied to city improvements that are not on my property, that are city property.
Wow.
So things are just getting more and more complicated. But at the end of the day, you know, it's one of the reasons you don't see as much new construction. It's challenging. City's projections is they want to be building 15,000 units a year, and for the last years, there's only 7,000 to 8,000 that have been built. So we're at half of where we should be, and that was an environment with low interest rates and without inflation. And now we're higher interest rates and we're inflation and more tenant regulation and displacement rules. So, that's the challenge, is how do you get to the numbers that we need for the backlog in San Diego and to keep up with housing. So all of those challenges, I still think it's worth it to do it. And as I said, everything takes longer and costs more. Someone shared with me, how long will it take? As long as it takes until I give up. It's sometimes how it feels on projects, right?